Power Project crew, thank you for checking out today's episode. This episode was recorded on April 20th, so happy 420 to everybody out there that partakes in the unofficial holiday. But today we have an awesome guest. It is with Professor David Stachura, who is a PhD researcher from the California State University, Chico. His research is focused on understanding the molecular basis of blood disease, and he does a ton of amazing groundbreaking work with stem cell research. And just like our friend Charles Brook, you guys will see that this guy is on an HNL. He is on a whole nother level. He is in the lab right now in the process of creating lab-created fish. I know it's crazy. We get into that. I'm going to try not to spoil as much as I've done in the past. Somebody on YouTube commented saying that I messed up an episode because I said too much in the description. But I just want to give you guys a background on who David is and what he does. And he is just a wealth of knowledge. So we talked about, of course, the coronavirus, his thoughts and opinions on that, whether or not stem cells is going to help it, whether or not a vaccine is going to get it right the first time around, because we talked about how the flu virus usually doesn't get it right, but we got his thoughts and opinions on that. We talked about the different range of symptoms that people are getting with the coronavirus. Nsima, unfortunately, he knows a lot of people that have been contracting the virus. Some of them have little to no symptoms. Others have very serious symptoms. And these are usually younger people that are in great shape. So we asked David, why the heck why is there so many variables when it comes to why people have different symptoms when they contract the virus, and he gives us a solid answer, and it makes a ton of sense. Also, last night was the first two episodes of The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls documentary, so we talked a ton about that. I hope you guys enjoy that, because I know I did. We're really looking forward to finishing out the rest of that series and talking about it here on air. So again, just a good, awesome conversation with a professor that is in the know, and Mark explained it very well. He's very much down the middle. He's not too far one side or the other side. He just gives us straight, solid information. And real quick, as fast as I can, if you guys haven't already, please head over to markbell.com, register for your free 30-day trial. The previous free trial used to only be 7 days, so it's really cool that you get an entire month of free daily workouts. That's right, at markbell.com. Mark posts his workout every single day. Every single day you're going to get a brand new workout, and we understand that gyms are shut down, so there's a huge emphasis on body weight movements, slingshot and hip circle movements, just a bunch of stuff that you can do without a gym, without a ton of equipment. Again, that's at markbell.com. And speaking of not having enough equipment or maybe wanting to spruce up your workouts, right now at markbellslingshot.com, we are running a 15% off sale off of all home fitness gear. So that means all slingshots, all hip circles, all apparel, and all of the sport knee sleeves. Just the sport knee sleeves, not the strong knee sleeves, because we're talking about the home stuff. So we're trying to help you guys out a little bit more by giving you guys more options on more items. So again, that's at markbellslingshot.com. That is a limited time only. That is from April 22nd to April 24th. So the day that this podcast publishes to Friday. So Wednesday to Friday, again, April 22nd to April 24th, 15% off all slingshots, hip circles, apparel, and sport knee sleeves. Thank you, everybody, for checking out this episode. If you guys like the conversation, or maybe, whether it's with the guest or whether it's without the guest, when we're talking about Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and all that, please reach out to us. Hit us up at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok, and let's have a conversation. But for right now, I want you guys to please enjoy this show. Clear the throat.
Perfect. Keto's awesome. You should go buy it.
And done.
I've been mixing up some awesome yogurt at night. And last night I made 2 nights ago, I made one for myself because I'm a selfish bastard. And Andy tried it. And Andy's like, oh, my God, that's really good. I had a scoop of Slingshot protein in there, but it had some of that collagen. A bunch of scoops of that collagen. I think this yogurt, my math was right. I think there was like 100 grams of protein in this mamma jamma.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's why I look a little swole today, a little extra swole from that.
Is that like Greek yogurt?
Yeah, it was that phage yogurt, I think it's called. It was that one. Yeah. It was that one mixed with a lot of threw a lot of protein in there, but the that collagen protein, the salted caramel, we used a bunch of that in the yogurt mix with some Slingshot protein. Threw it in the freezer. That's the hard part, is you got to wait for it. I threw it in the freezer for about 2 hours with some salt and some cinnamon. That was it. Just took a whisk, and then a big old, so I had to make it last night for Andy, because she was like, "You need to make me one of those." So I made up a giant one, big old bowl. But yeah, I'm loving the keto, perfect keto products.
Yeah, and what's awesome is it's, my fiance, she can't do straight black coffee. She always says that she has to have a lot of flavor in it because, we all have said and admitted that straight black coffee is a little rough. So
drinking it right now, it's gross.
Yeah, dude, I know. It's just like, you can get over it. Like you don't really ever acquire like a taste for it or whatever. It always starts out kind of like, that's shitty. So what can I do?
If you like black coffee, you're weird. You're a weirdo. Let's just say that. And it also means that you want to put your tongue on like on a battery. Like when you're a kid.
That makes a lot of sense. But now it's really cool is that she just uses the salted caramel MCT oil powder from Perfect Keto, and it's like, okay, it almost seems naughty because like it tastes so good, but it's good for you, right? Like it's just extra
Perfect
fuel.
Keto. The other thing is, too, is they don't use any artificial. I know some people are into this. They don't want to have any artificial ingredients. They don't want to have any artificial sweeteners in their diet. And so if you're looking for that and you want to get, bars that help you stay on a keto diet, or you want to get some protein that helps you stay on a keto diet, they use stevia instead of sucralose and things like that. So it presents you with a lot of great options.
Yeah, some really great stuff, guys. Head over to perfectketo.com/power25 at checkout. Enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off and free shipping on any orders of $99 or more.
I saw a pretty cool tutorial yesterday. I think you guys may have seen it. Maybe I saw that Nsima liked it, or maybe it was Settlegate or somebody. But anyway, I saw a good tutorial from our boy Kelly Starrett yesterday. He posted up something about some lunges, and I saw how he said a backwards lunge is more of a squat position assisted with a kickstand of your leg than it is an actual lunge. And so he wasn't promoting that was bad. He was just saying, hey, you're still in this kind of folded over position. And when you're doing a lunge, you're trying to not do that. You're trying to be like more upright. So I just wanted to throw that in there in the beginning of the podcast here, because I just thought I was like, I've never heard anybody, as always, Kelly Starrett bringing the noise every time. But I just thought that was a really useful tip for those of you out there that are messing with lunges, that are doing the kind of backward step lunge to help, avoid knee pain. It's a great movement, but also maybe try to think of some ways that you can get yourself more upright. One of the things he said right away to get yourself more upright is just to be on a small step. So just, you have your foot up on, a plate or two, or you have your foot up 6 or 8 inches might help. Oh, we got him in here, huh?
No, not yet.
Not
I don't
yet.
know what that was.
That was me looking at that Kelly Starrett video real quick.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, everyone's doing lunges right now, especially like trying to get some type of leg work in. Squats kind of get boring when you're not using much weight, but lunges always feel good and difficult. Like there's no way that, like, it's like lunges are a thing that, you get better at them, but they never really feel good, if you know what I'm saying.
Especially like first thing in the morning, like if your body's not warm or anything. Like in my mind, I was actually thinking about this today. I'm like, man, I'd be such a better athlete if my knees aren't terrible, but they just kind of suck. Like I don't know, they feel like they're always about to snap at some point, Once I'm warm, I feel fine. But in the morning, like first thing, they feel kind of like brittle. They don't feel like they're going to work great. I don't feel like I could shoot on somebody and just take their ass out unless I warmed up for 25 minutes.
Dude, you mentioned knees and all that stuff. While I was watching the Jordan documentary, all I was thinking about was like hops and just like, wow, like the fucking bounce. I've heard that a lot of people that you can actually you can train a lot of that stuff. Just most people don't. Like most people don't think that they can jump. They just don't really train that.
He was also very, very thin, very thin. Like when he was real young, he was super thin. So that probably helped.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey.
There he is.
Hey, doctor. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, no worries.
Really
Thanks
appreciate it.
me.
Let's kick it off with telling people what the hell it is that you do.
What I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a professor at Chico State. I teach immunology. I study how the body makes blood, and I'm working on some other stuff, basically trying to make sushi without actual fish, just trying to make it from stem cells, like in a dish. So I do a bunch of different things. Yeah.
Hey, what's that about? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
So would that mean that it's always fresh if it's fake?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons to do it, right? You know, we're really trying to do bluefin tuna because they're so endangered. But I mean, theoretically, it should be safer and better for you too, right? No mercury contamination, all the benefits of, you know, muscle fiber, but without, you know, all the bycatch and terrible fish farming techniques that we have to do.
Has this kind of thing been done before?
So I'm consulting with this company who's working on it right now in Emeryville. So they're doing it. There's other companies that are trying to do it with beef and pork and chicken. But yeah, we're kind of like leading the way on the fish front.
This is a lot different than an Impossible Burger, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be like a real fish. The idea would be do sashimi, right? Like sashimi grade, you know, sushi that you could have. So yeah.
That sounds amazing. And plus, anyone who's unfamiliar with bluefin tuna, that's like the best tasting sushi that you can get, I think, especially sashimi wise, because it's kind of a fattier tuna, right? Fattier part of the tuna.
Yeah.
Better than yellowtail?
A lot of people like it better than yellowtail, but
right. Yeah, the yellowtail's a little leaner, maybe.
Yeah.
Pause. I want to know, like, are you guys just growing the raw fish? Or are you growing like a full on fish?
No. You so like, you know, your muscle, you guys know this, right? Like your muscles have these like satellite cells in them, and they're basically like the stem cells of your muscle. So what we do is we take the fish and we isolate those stem cells, and then we just feed them different things to like coax them into turning into muscle. So, so it's basically like we start with a fish, obviously, but like basically it's just like a plate, and the fish meat grows on top of it. And like, how about this? Like if you saw like a tuna roll, you know, like how it's all like mashed up like tuna, just cut up like that. That's basically what it looks like in a dish.
When we had Shaun Baker on, he was, I mean, obviously he's very much against the Impossible Burger and that sort of thing. So I don't know if he made it sound much worse than it actually is. But when he was saying that in order to make that, they have to use like an actual like, I'm going to butcher this, but like an embryo or some type of a like an actual living cell in order to actually make it grow. If you want to correct me on that, please do. But for creating like recreating a fish, do you have to use any kind of like live or living thing to create it?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we're definitely taking them from fish. So we're starting off with bluefin tuna, and then we got to isolate those stem cells from them. Impossible Burger, I think the only thing they have that's alive is they use like yeast to produce the heme, which is kind of the thing that gives meat its flavor.
Yeah,
like,
sorry, I'm
the blood protein.
Yeah, I misspoke. It was for like lab created meat, not the Impossible Burger.
Yeah, for lab created meat, definitely. You know, they're taking stem cells from cows and chickens, and same thing.
With your knowledge, your wide base of knowledge, especially when it comes to stem cells, do you think that stem cells can be like? What do you think stem cells could potentially help the human body with? Like I've had some stem cell injections before, but you know, you don't know what you're getting from this person or that person, and I didn't really find it to be effective. But at the same time, maybe my expectations were too high. I had a really, an elbow that was really beat up from years and years of powerlifting, and I wanted to be able to get back to pursuing 600 pounds. Maybe there's not an injection for that. So, what do you think stem cells could be useful for?
Oh, I mean, I think we're going to see in the next 10 to 20 years, you can use stem cells for anything, honestly. But like what you're talking about is the problem with like the industry right now, which is that it's completely unregulated. And so you go into a doctor's, like the FDA doesn't regulate it, or if they do regulate it, they don't have enough like oversight to do anything about it. So there's like these stem cell clinics and you don't know what the hell you're getting, right? So you're probably getting like mesenchymal stem cells, which are like from your fat, and they just, you can isolate those from like a liposuction clinic. So it's honestly like Fight Club. They just take these bags of like liposuction fat and isolate those cells from them. And then those are stem cells technically, but you probably don't want fat stem cells injected into your eye to cure glaucoma, right? It's not going to do anything.
What have you seen? Like, what's some of the more like maybe miraculous things where you're like, wow, that's, and maybe that's, why you've been pursuing stem cells. Like, what are some, obviously the growing of fish seems to be amazing, and being able to grow protein and meat and food, that seems pretty wild. But what about in terms of inside the human body?
Well, I think the biggest success story for stem cells is basically blood stem cells. So you probably don't think about it, but you're making like 10 trillion blood cells per day, and all those cells need to get replaced constantly. And so there's so many diseases, so many types of problems that happen when those stem cells go haywire. And so for like bone marrow transplants and like infusion of blood stem cells, it can cure so many diseases. It's like totally changed the way we think about cancer and all types of blood issues. So yeah, those are big success stories. Like there's certain types of leukemia, which is basically just blood cancer, that it was like a 90% death rate for kids. And now with stem cell transplants, it's like a 90% survival rate. It's incredible.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that stuff's like all regulated, right? Like that's like, you got to go to the doctor's office, you got to go to the hospital to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, who the hell knows what you're getting injected in your elbow? That's the problem, right?
Right.
But theoretically, it could work, right? To inject stem cells into that region and repair that damage that's in your cartilage and the joint. So,
what about in terms of like this virus that's going around? Is it possible that maybe we're not there yet for you to be able to really say 100%, but would something like stem cells, help your immunity and help people be a little stronger, against some of these viruses and some things that might be to come?
Yeah, you could actually think about, infusing people with blood cells that would help fight off the disease. I don't think it's probably not the easiest way to do it. I think really the big thing is to get a vaccine, right? And then your body does it itself. But yeah, have you guys seen this where they're trying to take plasma from people who have already been infected and transfuse it into people that are potentially sick? Like that's a way to do it. It would work, because you have these proteins in your body, those antibodies that are in the plasma that could fight off the virus, but it's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is to make yourself make those antibodies and fight it off. What are some of your thoughts in general about the virus?
Do you feel like we're handling the coronavirus? Do you feel like we're handling it well? Do you feel like social distancing is helping? Do you feel like quarantine is helping? Like, what are some of your general thoughts on it?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I don't know. So where are you guys at? Like,
we're in California. I'm kind of near San Francisco.
Okay.
Sacramento over here.
Mm-hmm, Sacramento.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, I'm up in Chico, so it's pretty rural. I don't know. We haven't really felt the effects of any of this, right? It's not New York City. So it's hard. I don't really completely, how about this? We're just flattening the curve, just basically means like that the area under the curve is the same, right? Like everybody's going to get infected with this virus, right? The prediction is like 70% of the human population is going to get infected with this virus. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's been as bad as everybody is predicting that it was going to be. I guarantee the death rate is not going to be as high as it's being reported right now, because I guarantee people have this virus and it's been circulating in a population for longer than we think. So when we work out the numbers of how many people are dying and how many people are infected, we just don't know how many people are infected, because if you don't show symptoms, you have no idea if you've even been infected with the virus, right?
Isn't the number that's like kind of being, I think, spread around because people are saying it's 1% to 2%. Wouldn't that be like the case fatality rate of the virus? So if you go in, you get tested, you're positive, right, so they know you have the case, and then that's 1% to 2%. But like you said, we don't know like we could have all been infected and had absolutely no symptoms. And if we were tested and it shows that shows that we have infection, the infection fatality rate would be just way lower, correct?
Oh yeah, it's going to be way lower. It's going to be around influenza levels, you know.
Gotcha.
There was just like a paper that came out, and it's not published yet, but it's like looking at people in Sonoma County, and they think the estimates are like 3 to 6% of people in Sonoma County are infected with the virus just by small testing that they've done. So like, think about that. That's a lot of people, you know, and that's not how many people have died in Sonoma County. So when you work those numbers out, yeah, you're looking at like 0.1%. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to stop social distancing, right? And then it's just going to come back, and then they're going to do it again, and it's just going to come back. And I don't know what the purpose of that is.
You know, I'm curious then, what are your thoughts on, because I think we talked to Daniel Orego about this. What are your thoughts on like the way Sweden's handling it with their herd immunity approach? And it seems like with Sweden versus a place like New York, where everyone's like stacked and living on top of each other, right? It seems like different places need to have different types of quarantine. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that? Like if you, I don't know, if you like had control over this and you could say, hey, this should happen here, this should happen here, how would you have approached it? Just curious.
First, I think I would take it more like I think it matters where you're at, right? So the responses need to be different. So like, I don't necessarily think we needed to shut down a city of 60,000 people in rural Northern California. It just doesn't make that much sense. I have to tell you, like, honestly, the thing is, like, this virus is not airborne, right? So it's not like you're breathing it out. Like it's in your spit, right? So it can be like in particulate. So really the answer is just wash your fucking hands, you know, like just wash your hands and don't touch your face and just practice good hygiene and you'll be fine. You don't need to be 6 feet away from somebody. You just don't need to have somebody spitting in your face, you know? This is, you know, common decency, right?
Yeah.
So like we have, like, I wouldn't have shut down schools for the rest of the semester. You know, I would have said like, look, like, let's take it by week basis. If we don't see any cases coming back up, let's open school back up. What's the harm in doing that? But we've kind of just jumped the gun. Like, you know, our classes are canceled. Commencement is canceled. Commencement's canceled. It's like, why can't we just reschedule that? Why can't we push it back a couple weeks? It doesn't make any sense to me.
What are your thoughts on whether or not the virus will mutate and it'll just kind of come back and become the seasonal, you know, flu?
Sure. It can, for sure. I mean, there's all kinds of coronaviruses that cause like the common cold and cause other diseases. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see this again and again. This sounds really harsh, but, you know, like if you put a perspective on some of these things, like 10 million people died of tuberculosis in 2017, like around the world. 10 million people. And, you know, there's some scientists working on tuberculosis research, but you don't hear about that in the news all the time, right? 10 million people have not died of coronavirus.
From some of the stuff that you've seen, do you think that this virus is mainly, you know, just taking out people that maybe previously didn't have a healthy lifestyle, and also, you know, maybe some of these people are just like unaware, you know, like maybe they don't even really realize that they had a respiratory issue or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that it's pretty clear that who it's really wiping out are people with respiratory ailments, right? I mean, first, you know, if you're older, you have a terrible immune system anyway. That's just what happens as you get older. Your immune system goes, you know, it goes to shit. But, you know, if you're a 75-year-old smoker with diabetes and you're overweight, yeah, but you've got other health issues too, right? I mean, it's not necessarily like the coronavirus that's going to take you out. Like you're on your way, you know, like it definitely highlights like poor health and poor knowledge of people's bodies. They just think, whatever, I'll just go to the hospital and get treated. I was listening to something the other day, which is like, if you get on a respirator, Like if you're put on a respirator, your chances of surviving are basically 50%. Like you're so screwed. Like you're so bad off. If you need to be on a respirator, it's a flip of a coin, right? And so we keep talking about like, well, we need more respirators. Really, we need to. That's not going to help. You know.
Yeah, my understanding. Yeah, some of my understanding of a respirator is that it would even be hard it's difficult to get somebody used to a respirator that's even healthy. Like it's a hard transition to get to it.
They have to usually, anesthetize you because your lungs work off of like negative pressure, but a respirator basically works off of positive pressure. So it's like pushing air into your lungs, which is like not how you actually breathe, right? Like through your diaphragm and like pulling the air in. So yeah, apparently it's like a terrible thing to be put on.
When it comes to like testing for this stuff, we briefly mentioned it, but what are some of your thoughts on like, does that solve problems for us or does that create more issues? And then like there might be, some false positives and there might be some mistakes being made in the laboratories and stuff like that. What are some of your thoughts on testing for it?
Yeah, sure. I think that one thing is that people don't know a lot about viruses, right? So it just like the general population, right? So like so we do this thing in class where I test the kids and they see if they have mono or not, right? So mononucleosis, it's caused by this virus. It's called the Epstein-Barr virus. And basically no one tests positive for mono, right? Because most people aren't walking around with like a raging mono infection. But then I test them later for antibodies that have been made against that virus. And like 95% of the kids in class have those antibodies, which means like 95% of us have been infected with that virus at some point in time. But most of us fought it off, right? And we didn't get mono. And I think we're going to see the same thing with this, right? So we're going to test and we're going to say, okay, you're positive. But what does that mean? It just means at some point in time, I had that virus in me and I fought it off. How does that help us, right? So like to tell you the truth, I'm ordering the tests now because I just want to test people around here, and kind of show them that they probably already had it. But what does it mean clinically? I don't really know. But I see what you're saying, which is, does it make people like even more scared and worried, that they've been infected with it?
I don't know. Yeah. What you said there kind of makes me curious too, like, because like people can get infected and they don't even realize it. But another thing I'm curious about is just like, there's really bad flus. I don't know if there's even needs to be an explanation for this, but I do know some individuals. I know like actually quite a few people who have had it at this point. I have quite a few people that have had it and they're like, oh, I just had a little bit of cough for a day and I was good. Some people literally no symptoms. They were fine. Yeah. And I have a friend in New York. I was texting Mark and Andrew about this. He's young, he's healthy, but he had a rough go of it for 7 days. He lost his sense of taste, sense of smell. So what I'm curious about here is, I guess, is there an explanation for why there's so much range in symptoms? Is it just how strong it hits you? Because he was fairly healthy. I mean, he's recovered, right? He wasn't anywhere close to death or anything. But is there an explanation for that?
Yeah, so I got to get a little sciencey for a second on that one. But yeah, but there's a total reason. And so we inside of us have all these proteins and they kind of determine like your body from the outside world. So like that's how your immune system tells like self from non-self, right? And these proteins, what they do is they process other proteins in your body and they kind of present them on the surface of a cell. So I like to think of these, they're like it's like a hot dog being presented in a bun. Like that's what I tell kids in class. And so like these buns and these hot dogs are like sitting outside of your cells. And then like the immune cells can like interact with them. So all of us have different buns, right? If that makes sense. So like that's why like if I gave you a kidney, right, your body would fight off that kidney. It would see that bun and it would destroy it, right? So like the way that you present those hot dogs out on the surface of the cell basically dictates how well you're going to respond to these infections. So like there's groups of people, and I'm not saying like races. It's usually like it's like isolated groups. So it's like who you mate with, right? Like what kind of combinations of those buns you have and how you present those peptides, those pieces of protein, the virus on the surface. So like no one's done this yet, but like I'm guaranteeing they're going to find that there's a certain subtype of people with like a certain subtype of protein that do really well and they can clear the infection really, really easily. But this is like how evolution and the immune system and pathogens like end up wiping out huge groups of people because they can't respond properly to that kind of virus. And if you can respond properly, you just make an antibody and it's in your mucus and you just clear it and it's gone. So I think what we're seeing is it's not just health. I mean, obviously, like when you're older and you have respiratory ailments, like that's definitely a risk factor. That's a risk factor for tons of stuff, right? But yeah, young people who are healthy, it could just be like that you're unlucky genetically, honestly, and you just can't fight off that virus the way that other people fight it off.
Can you maybe relate how the human body makes antibodies to working out, since we're a bunch of meatheads? Maybe there's a correlation there.
No. So you mean like how you make antibodies at all?
Yeah, like why your body makes them or how it makes them.
Yeah, so like basically what happens is the simple version is, let's say a virus gets inside of your cell. There's special cells that eat those viruses up. So they're going to eat those viruses up and they're going to present them to like another cell. And that cell, like, when you get sick and your lymph nodes swell up. So those are those cells growing and they're called B cells. So like the B cells start growing and they start making more copies of themselves. And basically what they do is they make these special proteins and they're called antibodies. And then what happens is those B cells like secrete the antibodies. And the reason that antibodies do anything in you is there's a couple things they can do, but what they do is they stick to the virus. And so they stick to the virus and then that tells your body like, oh, look, there's an antibody stuck to this virus. I should eat it up. So it increases like the digestion of like those of the viral proteins, and it also allows the other cells. Like, let's say you have a virus that infects a cell, right? So your body, it can't do anything, right, because it's inside of the cell. So actually, what it does is you have special T cells in your body that can kill those cells. So you're basically sending a signal that says, okay, look, I'm infected with a virus. Come over here and kill me. And you have special cells in your body that'll go over and kill those cells. So antibodies are kind of like it's kind of like the signal to your body that something's wrong. And I'm going to label it with all these little antibodies and you guys clean up the mess.
When it comes to
does that help?
Yeah, that helps a ton. Yeah. When it comes to T cells, do you think the answer is to try to, make more of them? And if so, how do we make more T cells?
Yeah, so like that whole process, a lot of you can stimulate T cells, you can stimulate more T cell growth, but sometimes that's not a good thing because, like I said, they kill other cells. So you don't want them going crazy. So there's like a tight regulation like in your body, like how many do we make and how many do because you don't want to just like destroy your airway with T cells, right? Like, oh, all these cells are infected. Let's just destroy them. And then you get a hole in your windpipe, right? So like most things don't like stimulate more T cells. But like you were asking about stem cell treatments before, now there's a lot of people who have been working on basically making T cells that are targeting like cancer cells. And this has been a treatment. So you can take the T cells out of your body and you can basically tell them to recognize a cancer cell and you put them back in your body. And then all they do is they go crazy and they just kill all those cancer cells. This is like a new technology that's come on the market in like the last 5 to 10 years. And it's incredible for doing that, for clearing bad
for like
things.
All types of cancer? Or is
not all types? Yeah. Not all types. Usually it's the main one was leukemia, but they're working on like solid tumors now. So like breast cancer, things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this actually, and we don't need to spend much time on this at all, but, the Spanish flu 1918 is what you were talking about, because how the Spanish flu, apparently it took out young, healthy people. What was it that it caused? Was it like, because it was causing like an overproduction of something that just killed people with good immune systems, I think, or am I totally off?
No, I think, well, it's hard, right? Because 1918, it's before we had penicillin, like, so basically who knows exactly what was going on, but yeah, what can happen a lot of times is you have like this overstimulation of your immune system and your immune system is just trying to fight this thing off. But really what it's doing is it's causing more damage to your body. So there's actually like a lot of work on like drugs that I've seen for COVID, which is actually turning down the immune system, because the immune system is like cranked up, to 11, and you want to turn it down. This is like when you get a fever, right? Yeah. So when your body gets a fever, that's basically your body trying to kill the virus. It's raising your body temperature because viruses don't like high temperature. So it's like it's your response. It's not like the virus makes you hot. It's like you're making yourself hot. You make yourself swell to like get rid of those kind of things. So yeah, it can totally be the immune system like going crazy.
And on top of that, because I know you're definitely the guy that can help explain this to us. A lot of parents have kids, and what people have been hearing was like, if your kid at 11, 12 and under, they'll probably get this and they'll probably have mild to no symptoms. Can you explain to us why that is? Apparently there's something with a child's immune system that just doesn't cause them to have a really bad version of this virus. They just end up being carriers. Why is that?
Yeah, I think they're working on this right now, but basically, those antibodies I was telling you about, they're not just inside of your body. You actually secrete them. So like your mucus and everything like in your respiratory tract is like filled with antibodies, right? And they're antibodies against things that you've sampled. And you're basically trying to fight them before they even get inside of your body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like kids, younger people, they have more of those antibodies. So they have a better production of those kind of antibodies that are basically getting stuck in the mucus. So then when they breathe in a viral particle or they rub their eyes or whatever, it's like instantly neutralized with those antibodies. So I think the younger you are, the better you have like protection so that the virus doesn't even get inside of you in the first place.
And then
I think that's what they're finding.
Yeah. And then does that make it better or worse for spreading the virus?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. It could make it worse, right? Because you don't know, right? You're just clearing it constantly. I mean, yeah, it's worse because, if you get mucus, kids are disgusting, right? So like I have two like 1.5-year-olds, like we just had twins like a year and a half ago.
Whoa, wow.
Congrats.
Like, they're real gross.
They eat everything, man. Like they're just chewing on doorknobs and just wiping their boogers everywhere. And you can't stop it, right? But like, so the spread of that virus is, it's worse in younger people, right? Because they're not paying attention, right? They're just getting it everywhere. But again, it's like, it's so easy. Like just wash your hands, just use hand sanitizer, don't rub your eyes. You don't need a full hazmat suit to go to Costco. Just wash your hands,
Yeah. So even though they are able to neutralize it instantly, it just lives inside them, so then they can still pass it on.
No, I mean they're probably clearing it so that it's not within them. But I mean for a little bit, sure, it's going to be inside of them and they're going to shed that virus.
Got it.
I mean that happens all the time though. Like I think that people really get focused on this, like, oh, you're coughing, you're sneezing, don't be around me. You're giving me virus. But the reality is like, that person was probably sick for like 3 or 4 days before they started coughing and sneezing, and they've been sharing that virus with you the whole time. So, I mean, it's definitely easier to share the virus when you're sneezing all over the place and getting droplets everywhere. But honestly, you're constantly fighting off viruses like every minute of the day. And most of them you never know infect you because you just clear them so easily. You don't get sick every time you get a virus inside of you. Usually you get rid of it pretty quickly. But the issue is like when you don't, right? And it's a race against time, right? If your body doesn't fight it off fast enough, you get sick. So yeah, I mean, those kids still have the virus, but they're not going to have it forever, right? You'll clear it. But during that time, yeah, sure, they're going to be spreading it around for sure. I think that's the danger, right? The asymptomatic thing, right? It's like, I don't have symptoms, but I'm still spreading the virus around.
Do we have any information yet on whether this, if you get this virus, if you can get it again?
I think that it seems like there is some evidence of that. And that again is just like, your body makes those antibodies and they're not perfect. So if they bind to a certain part of the virus and then that virus mutates, then it doesn't bind anymore. and then you don't have immunity against it. So this is the problem with the seasonal flu too, right? Influenza. We make a vaccine and we think it's going to work against the strain that's out there, and then of course it changes, and then you get infected. You get infected with influenza. It's just a different strain, and that vaccine just doesn't help you. It's the same issue. So I would not doubt that there's going to be new varieties of this coronavirus running around that are going to keep infecting people.
Yeah, we've had a few doctors on this show who have adamantly said, like, you can't stop, the government and people can't stop a virus. There's not really, washing your hands, as you're pointing out. It's like beyond that, and then just some general wellness, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Don't be disgusting with your food, and try to get some sleep, and don't be overtaxed all the time and overworked all the time. But that was kind of some of the statements that we've had on this show, and it appears that that's very true. I mean, it seems like when we all start to go back to work and things like that, I would imagine the first people that come out of their house are going to be fairly healthy, have a robust immune system, and be able to handle, whatever's out there. And so it will appear as if the quarantine worked, but it will just be an illusion, really, because we're probably still passing the virus around. People are probably still getting it. I've heard some estimates that they think like over 80 million Americans have already had the virus, and so it's going to be really hard to pinpoint, what the heck is really happening and going on. But I guess maybe the one thing is it slowed things down enough to maybe we'll end up with some medicine, and maybe we'll end up with a vaccine soon enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence that it's been circulating, at least in California, for a long time, since like December, people coming back with it. So it's not shocking. But like what you're really saying, at the end there is that our healthcare system sucks, right? So like the problem is we need to like flatten the curve, because we just can't handle these kind of things because everything's privatized. And, why should we have ventilators? Why should we have ICU beds? Like, we don't need them. Right. And I think in essence, yes, this thing's going to rage through our population. And if you are genetically capable of clearing it, you're going to survive. And if you're not, it sounds really bad, but you're not going to survive it. And there's nothing really, closing down stores or closing school. That's not going to change that. That's the reality of it.
On the trail of what Mark asked with the mutation, when most of us think about mutation, we think about like, it gets worse, and then it turns into, we think it gets worse. But does it always get worse when it mutates, or does it sometimes become less, not as bad?
Yeah, for sure. It can go either way. So usually what happens is, you think of mutation as it getting worse, because let's say you got 5 viruses, right? And one gets like stronger, right? And it can infect people better, right? And let's say the other 4 viruses, they mutate and they get weaker, right? They don't infect very well. Well, that stronger one's going to like outcompete the other ones, right? So like that stronger one's going to infect people faster, and then it's going to keep changing over time. But yeah, there's millions of like mutations that are happening constantly, and those viruses, they just suck and they go away. But yeah, there is also the potential that, it gets a little bit weaker. It spreads around in the human population. We all get herd immunity, which basically just means all of us become immune to it. And then it just it just goes away. So yeah, that's totally a potential.
Are there any precautions or anything we can do to prevent it from mutating into some crazy monster?
No, that's the weird biology of these viruses is basically when we copy our DNA in our body, right? We have special proteins that basically check and make sure that the DNA is getting like properly turned into RNA and turned into protein. In other words, like we have like proofreading chemicals inside of us, and the viruses don't have that. So what happens is they just make copies of themselves, and if the copy of themselves is different, they don't care. It doesn't really matter, and so there's like no way to stop that mutation.
Isn't that a similar issue? Isn't it a similar issue with cancer? The cancer, right? It copies itself over and over again, right?
Right. And it's basically like, for cancer, it's like your cells have lost that capability of saying like, okay, there's something wrong. I need to go back and fix it, or I need to just kill this cell. Right. And it just says, I don't care anymore. Obviously I'm anthropomorphizing here. Cells don't say that, but viruses don't say that. But yeah, they stop caring and they just keep making more copies of themselves.
I'd imagine with your work, I would assume that it would be essential. So maybe not too many things have changed for you, or have they changed drastically? Or are you having to stay at home as well?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be at home. I'm at work right now. But I have all these animals. So we have an animal colony downstairs. And so I'm kind of listed as like an essential worker because I have to take care of all my animals. We use these little fish. So they're called zebrafish. You guys have probably seen them in like aquariums. And we have a whole bunch of varieties of them that have fluorescent blood. And so we can look at them and see where the blood cells are and what they're doing. And we can modify them by putting in different genes and different proteins. So I got to make sure they're all alive. So I get to come into work every day and feed fish. It's like Petco.
Do you think within the next decade or two that we'll have, maybe I guess it's kind of hard to have a cure for cancer since there's so many different types, but you think we'll be pretty close?
Yeah, I think we're getting closer and closer. I mean,
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, for a lot of cancers, it's just we do have like great cures. So if you were like an oncologist in the 60s, it was probably pretty frustrating because the only thing we had were like chemotherapy, just kind of like really destructive drugs, right? Drugs that like kill every kind of cell that's dividing. But now we have like really targeted cancer treatments. So it's getting a lot better. But the reality is, like how long do human beings, like how long do you want to live, right? Like we weren't made to live past, 110 years old. Like your body just is, I don't know. It becomes like kind of like futile at some point in time, I think. Like what's your quality of life,
Yeah, if you're going to live to 150, I'd imagine that your teeth will probably not be around anymore, and there'll probably be a lot of other issues, right?
Yeah. Your body is set to decline at some point in time. So that's what cancer is, right? I mean, that's why you get it when you get older. Like 1 out of 3 people is going to get it. So,
have you heard of the Keto Pet Sanctuary? Have you heard of that before?
No. This
was a sanctuary that they put together where they tested dogs and they put them on a ketogenic style diet. And a lot of the dogs, I don't know what other treatment went along with it, but a lot of the dogs went into remission for cancer. Not all of them. Huh. But that was something that one of my friends worked on. His name is Ron Penna. He's the guy who kind of led the charge. And then I had another friend that worked on that with him. And as soon as I brought your name up, he got all excited. He's like, "Oh man, he's really sought after in cancer." So you're gonna have a good time on the podcast with him. Have you noticed anything in terms of cancer? In terms of just does exercise help? Does nutrition help? Does just having a more, robust, nervous system and body and a healthier body, does that assist at all, or is it just take anybody?
No, I think it's pretty clear that all those things are super important. So, what you're putting into your body definitely dictates, your immune function and how you respond to different things. And honestly, a lot of the idea with some of these diets is that, you have all these microbes that live inside of you, right? And I say inside of you, but I like to think of like the human body like a big donut, right? And there's a donut hole, and that's basically your mouth to your anus, right? And so like, it's not really your body, right? But like, so we talk about the donut hole a lot in class. And so all the critters that live in that donut hole are super important. And so changing your diet, I mean, it's pretty clear that it changes. It can change your personality. It can change your, anxiety. You can get rid of it because there are certain bacteria in there that are making basically neurotransmitters that are going to your brain. And just by changing your diet, you can change the way that those proteins are being made. And it's the same thing for, fighting inflammatory diseases, right? If you're eating things that are causing your body to react inappropriately to inflammation. It's terrible. But yeah, nutrition is a huge part of it. I mean, I think genetics is like how you interpret that stuff in the donut hole. But yeah, I mean, it definitely matters.
I have a question for you, and I'm curious if this is just purely anecdotal or if there's any merit to this. Now, I know some people who, as they ate more meat, they because you mentioned personality. So they're reporting, I feel a little bit more aggressive, or I feel a little bit more, not like mad or anything,
Sure.
just a little bit more aggressive. And I know individuals who started only eating like vegetables and only plants. And they're like, I feel a little bit more calm, or I feel a little bit.
Want to go do yoga?
This might. I don't know if there's any merit or there's something there, because you mentioned personality. I'm curious: is there something there, or is this just their experience?
No, I think it's pretty clear that it's true. So it depending on what you're eating changes the kind of bacteria that are in your gut, and it totally could make a difference. Yeah. So there's been like quite a few studies where like going on a keto diet totally changes your gut microbiota. So like all the bacteria that's living in the donut hole. And like, I don't know if there's been like any correlation to like, the way people feel about it, or if they just feel like they are more aggressive because they're eating a lot of meat. I don't know. But I mean, I guess that's a possibility, right? But I think there's a strong possibility that it really has to do with the chemicals that are being made by those bacteria inside of people's gut. I don't think anyone like has a direct finding with that, but it's clear that it changes like what's inside of your gut.
Well, I would say there's probably a pretty big difference between, eating spinach that you cooked up just off of a fork versus eating a ribeye and having the bone and being able to kind of like pull it away from you. I mean, there's got to be some stuff in your brain that's feeling that sensation of chewing the meat, and it certainly feels different. So I'd imagine
Sure.
Your body is interpreting it all to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, it's definitely psychological, but there's probably some chemical component to it. But yeah, of course, you're gonna feel a little bit different, eating quinoa versus a steak off the bone, for sure.
Charles was telling us that you mainly eat vegetables, right? You're mainly a vegetarian.
Yeah, I mean, I do eat meat, but I try to just eat local stuff. Try to be good about that.
How long you been doing that for?
Since I was, I don't know, a teenager. I think as a teenager, I had like it was more of like an animal rights kind of thing that I was into. And then I just kind of realized like, it's not, I don't know. I have a different perspective now as an adult. But like factory farming and stuff is pretty terrible. I mean, I don't think anyone would debate that. Like when you see those feedlots, as you drive through on the 5, going south, it's pretty gross. And you think, man, this is like how we keep animals. But, I don't have any problem getting a hamburger from like, a local farm around here where I know it's not filled with chemicals and the animals weren't treated terribly. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. I don't know about you guys, but
What do you do exercise-wise? You get a chance to exercise?
yeah, I do a lot of mountain biking. So around here, I get to ride my bike a lot. So pretty much that.
That's great, because mountain biking doesn't seem like something that's really been affected much by this.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's actually great. So my mountain biking has gone up exponentially during this time.
That's pretty awesome. No, meatheads are getting really sad because they don't have a gym to work out in. So they're all stuck doing push-ups and squats at home, which is perfectly okay. But
yeah, there's some specialized equipment that you probably just don't have laying around in your apartment for certain exercises. Yeah.
Is there some stuff that you're seeing with stem cells that could turn us into like super beings? Is there something that you've stumbled upon? I mean, we're into like bodybuilding, powerlifting.
Sure.
Is there potential that we can take a stem cell injection and turn into LeBron James or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking about like powerlifting, right? Like there's definitely stuff you could do to enhance your, muscle production. Like that's not debatable, right? I mean, all of this stuff, like, yes, it could definitely be used for enhancement. clearly. Like there's so many stem cell technologies that could be used for enhancement. I think that's like the gray area, right? Where people start to think like, oh, is this right? Is this ethically correct? But I mean, we enhance ourselves all the time, right? Like it's kind of just the next phase of it as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, of course you could take those muscle stem cells and inject them into you. And, yeah, why wouldn't it work? It should work.
I know a lot of times the guys that are in the lab sometimes are the guinea pigs. I had Andy Galpin remove a chunk of muscle from my leg, and I was a big puss about it, and everybody in the lab laughed at me because they're like, we get that done all the time, because they're all using each other for experiments. Have you gone down that rabbit hole? Do you get used for experiments, or you use your students, or you use those zebrafish?
No, I use myself a lot. Yeah. So like I take my own blood for class, and so I need blood for experiments. So I'll just, sit down and tie up and take my own blood. And, to somebody else, there's like, how do you do that? That's insane. But I've been doing it for a long time, so it's easy.
It's the beginning of a good science fiction movie, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I take my own blood all the time. I haven't taken muscle, but yeah, I guess I experiment on myself too.
I'm curious about that actually, because you were mentioning earlier that when people want to get stem cell treatments, sometimes doctors just take it from fat, and that really doesn't do much. But I've heard of people getting stem cell treatments on their elbows, their knees, etc. Some people have reported just miraculous, improvement in the way those areas feel. So my first question would be, how would one go about making sure that if they want stem cell treatment, they get it correctly? And then secondly, are you able to get stem cells from your blood yourself? And have you done anything to your joints and seen any type of improvement?
So I haven't done anything to myself, but
okay.
Theoretically, that would be the safest thing, is if you could take, let me just say this, the fat stem cells, they have the capability to turn into like bone and cartilage and basically repair joints as well. So those stem cells, they're not completely worthless. It's more that like, you don't know like the place that's harnessed them and harvested them and processed them. Like you don't even know if they're alive anymore. Right. But theoretically, if you could take your own fat stem cells and inject them into like, a wounded joint, theoretically you could repair damage that's going on in there. I should also say that, just what people really need to do is just do kind of like sham surgeries too on the side, which is basically like sometimes just sticking a needle into the joint is going to cause inflammation, and it's going to cause your body to repair the damage that's there anyway. So it's almost like you can induce, the repair yourself. That doesn't work. That doesn't work in all cases, right? But sometimes like creating like inflammation or like doing that can cause repair. You don't need stem cells at all. You just need your cells to go in there and fix up the tissue and repair it. I mean, that's not going to work if you've like torn your ACL off, right?
Yeah.
But there are certain.
Are there particular stem cells that people should be looking for if they're interested in investigating this further? Does it have a particular name?
Yeah, so I would say it was those ones that I was talking about from the fat. They're called mesenchymal stem cells.
Okay.
MSCs. Yeah, so like those hold the most promise for things like that you guys are talking about, which is repairing joints, repairing damaged tissue, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like there's tons of variables, but is there like a time frame that one of those stem cells would like start taking effect? Like how soon would somebody know like, I got some bad stem cells versus, yep, this is working?
So the bad thing would be like you just don't, nothing happens, right? The worst thing that would happen is you get an infection, right? But of course that's like, you don't know if there was bacteria or something in that stem cell batch and you just injected that into a joint. That you're going to know real fast, and it's going to be pretty terrible. But I would think, for repairing damage like that, a couple days, you should be able to tell. I mean, it's going to take a lot. It depends on what the damage is, right? You know, if it's just a little bit, then it should start happening pretty quickly. Those cells grow like crazy. And if they're in the right place, they're going to do what they need to do. But yeah, the scary thing is it's like totally unregulated, right? So you go into some place and you think the person's even they don't even need to be like a medical doctor, right, to do some of these procedures, and it's pretty scary.
I'd imagine this quarantine is probably about to be lifted. Do you think we'll end up going back to quarantine, or do you because I'd imagine? Yeah, same here. But it seems like it could be a possibility, huh?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. But I mean, it really does seem like everybody's getting ready to lift things, and kind of relax the regulations. But yeah, we'll just see. I mean, more people are going to get contaminated with the virus for sure. So I'm just worried about how weird it's going to be, like with people trying to go back to work and trying to socially distance. It's going to be real strange. It's going to be a real strange couple months.
Yeah, everyone wearing masks and suits and gloves and trying to keep away from each other and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like masks and gloves, like your average person, like we're not in a lab like yourself, so we don't know shit about, what to do with masks and stuff. Do you think it's even worth utilizing?
So the only thing a mask does for this is really just prevent you from spreading the virus, right? So like, I think a lot of people think that they're wearing a mask to protect themselves, but really all they're doing is they're stopping themselves from spitting all over everything and spreading the virus. So masks, I would say, do you really think cutting a t-shirt up and putting it on your face is like going to prevent you from getting a virus? Like, no way, man. It's crazy talk. It does prevent you from sneezing all over the place, but you shouldn't be sneezing all over the place anyway. Mm-hmm. For gloves, it's like, honestly, I don't understand why people wear gloves, because, they'll be wearing gloves and then they're touching their face and then they're touching their phone and then they're touching the shopping cart and then they're touching their car door handle. It's like, it's the same as your hand, man. Like you're just moving things around. I even see people I saw some people the other day that were wearing like knit gloves, and I'm like, that's like a sponge. You're just wearing two sponges around on your hands. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's not helping. That's for sure.
I was actually really curious about this. Now, I wanted to mention this as a good note. I got a client over in New York, and his mom had cancer, and she got COVID. She got corona also, but she had she recovered pretty quick. So, I mean, obviously that's just one single anecdotal case, and she was going through treatment for cancer at the time. But it's like, typically you hear like people with cancer are just going to die when they get this. But I guess, like you were mentioning, there are different severities that people will get this, and that's good to realize.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on your genetics, like how your body processes that virus. And like in that case, that person probably just was fine with clearing it,
And this makes me want to ask you one more thing, because sure. A few weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I was hearing, I think Peter Attia was mentioning a little bit of it. He didn't go too deep, but he was talking about how they're finding that certain blood types manage this better. Is there currently efficacy to that? Do you know of that? Like, you heard that before?
Yeah, I don't know anything about different blood types. Okay. I would doubt it. The difference between blood types is it's kind of, I would doubt that it matters on your blood type. I think it more matters on the way that your body handles viruses, which might have been what they were trying to say, trying to make it less complicated. But just whether you're A positive or A negative, I don't think is going to have much of a difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With your years in the lab, do you think it's possible that this thing was created in a lab?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not saying that it was, right? But it would be so easy to do it. It's really not hard. I can order DNA sequences from a company for whatever I want. I just type in the letters and they will send me the DNA in a tube. And I could put together a variety of those different things and put them in a cell and make a virus. I mean, we do that all the time. We actually make viruses in the lab so that we can infect other cells, right? So like we make these viruses. I mean, we don't make COVID, right? We're making viruses to do good things, right? In the lab.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why it couldn't have been generated. I don't think that it was, but you're not going to be able to find out if it was or if it wasn't, honestly.
Is this
tough.
Is this a common practice? Like, do people tamper with viruses to maybe try to get ahead? You know, do people maybe say like, hey, well, you know, this is a possibility of a virus that could happen, and so we want to make vaccines for it. And so, like, do people do like? I'm unaware of people if we've been doing that throughout our history. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so when people are trying to study viruses, yeah, they'll try to manipulate things in the genome of the virus to see like maybe it infects a little bit stronger, and maybe we should be worried about this variety of virus. So yeah, people do it. I mean, and clearly, you know, I don't have any insight on this really, but I mean, why wouldn't governments be weaponizing viruses too? I mean, that's not a terrible, you know, we have stockpiles of smallpox, I'm sure, and I'm sure the Soviet Union has stockpiles of smallpox. And, you know, if you had let that go right now, it would be terrible because no one has immunity to smallpox. Like, you guys haven't gotten smallpox vaccines, have you? Like, it was like, I think they stopped it it's like, you would know, you have like a little scar. It's like this like round scar on your arm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that was the smallpox vaccine. So like, you know, older people have it, but probably not most of the people on planet Earth right now. And if that got out of a lab, it would be bad.
That sounds scary. So if no worries. That's great. So if viruses are fairly easy to make, what about like antiviruses then?
Yeah. So I should say they're easy to make, but like companies that like synthetically generate all that DNA, usually what they do is they check. So like if I sent in like a sequence that looked like a weird virus, they would basically probably call the FBI and be like, hey, this guy's trying to make this weird virus right now. That being said, yeah, there's lots of people working on antiviral technology. It's just really hard because what viruses do is they kind of hijack you. So viruses aren't alive. They're just these chunks of protein and DNA or RNA, just basically genetic material. And what they do is they get inside of you and they trick your body into making more of them. So it's really hard. It's really hard to fight them off because what you're trying to do is you have to teach your body to like not respond to them.
Mm. You know, I'm first off, I'm really happy that you said what you said earlier about like, I mean, I'm not saying that this was made in a lab or anything, but like I think it was three or so weeks ago, there were some people going back and forth on CNN and they were saying it's absolutely impossible for us to be able to make something like this in the lab, right? But it's just funny that like, because like people are like, oh no, there's absolutely no way that's even remotely possible. But you, obviously with your expertise, you know it actually is it's a possible thing to do. Not saying it was done, but it's very possible to do. So it's good that you shared that with us because a lot of people that I know are like, that's absolutely 100% false. And some of them are in like doctors, et cetera. So it's just kind of interesting, I guess.
I think that anyone who's a scientist that tells you like something is 100% like impossible to do, like they're not a good scientist, right? Like, because there's always a possibility to do this kind of stuff, right? I can never tell you with like 100% certainty whether something was done in a certain way, right? I mean, there's always some way around that issue. Yeah, I mean, do I think it was made in a lab? I don't, but I have no reason to say that, right? I have no evidence to either way, right?
Yeah.
But how about this? Like, even if it was, who cares, right? Like, we still need to get rid of it, right? It's still a problem, right? So like, if it was this terrible experiment engineered in China and like let loose on the population, what the hell are we going to do about it? You know, we still need to make a vaccine against it, right?
Yep. And on that note, actually, you were mentioning that, you know, when the vaccine comes out, you take it. Obviously, you have all these individuals who are like anti-vaxxers and no to vaccines. And it seems that you're not like that. So can you explain to some of the audience what would potentially be the benefit of taking it? And also, do you think that for an individual who's like, I really don't want to take that, are they taking a risk or are they pretty much okay? And I want to preface this with saying I haven't had a flu vaccine since I was 16, not because not because I don't like taking vaccines. I just don't like needles. And I've been cool. So what are your opinions on that?
Sure. I mean, I think that, so there's a lot of communicable diseases that are really, really dangerous, right? So, I mean, measles, mumps, rubella, all these things, they're super dangerous. Like, so you're probably not debating like that polio is a terrible disease, right? We don't see people with polio anymore because we're all vaccinated against polio, or at least the majority of us are, and then polio can't gain kind of a foothold in the population. So like coronavirus, you know, like we were talking about, what's the fatality rate of it, right? We don't know. So if it's really low, do we really need to have everybody vaccinated against it? No, we don't. But it's more of just kind of like it's a social practice, right? So that you're not spreading it to like maybe, you know, like if you were at home taking care of your 80-year-old grandma and she's got respiratory problems, then I would say get the vaccine, man. You know, like don't spread it to her. So this is like a tough one. You know, I would probably take the vaccine just because I have little kids. But I'm with you. I don't always get the influenza vaccine every year either. And it's not because I'm scared of the influenza vaccine. It's just because I don't even think about it because I never get influenza.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds bad, you know, and maybe I'm getting it and spreading it to other people, but it's just not, if you're a healthy, and I work in a college, man. So like these kids are sick like all the time and I just do not get sick. I have a good immune system. Yeah, that sounds bad. That sounds bad for the immunology professor to tell you. But I would say that one thing though, you know, all these risks that people think vaccines have, they're really unfounded. Like all this causing autism, MMR, like that, it's been disproven like 1 million times that causes autism. It really does not cause autism. So if you're like worried about like your kid getting, first of all, it's also kind of dick too. So like what you're saying is I'd rather have my kid die than get autism, right? So like that's pretty fucked up if you think about it on that level too. But it's just that autism, like those symptoms present at the same time that you're taking those vaccines. And so you get the vaccine and you think your kid got autism, but no, autism's likely genetic and your kid had autism before. You just didn't notice it until, you know, it's correlating with that vaccine. So I would say everything has a risk, right? And so like what you're asking is like, is the risk of coronavirus worth the risk of like an adverse reaction with the vaccine? Usually there's no adverse reactions with vaccines. So I would say, yeah, sure. Like, why not take it? But you know, it's especially crazy for like these diseases that can like wipe out population. Like measles is crazy. Like measles can alter your immune system for the rest of your life. And I think that people are like, oh, it's no big deal. I got measles when I was a kid. I'm like, yeah, but your immune system is not as good as it was before you had measles.
Okay. So with like the flu shot, it seems like we almost never get it right. Are you confident that when the this vaccine comes to fruition, do you think that we will get it right?
Yeah, I think that it depends how they make it, and the technology behind that is changing a lot. So I think that they're more likely to get it right this time. Influenza is really crazy. It's really hard to guess what version of influenza is going to be out there, and it takes a long time to make the vaccines. And I think what people are realizing now is like, we need a different way to make vaccines. And so I think that there's different technology now that's coming on the market to basically make these vaccines faster and more effective. And so I think once that rolls out, I think, yeah, it should be good. But yeah, exactly what you're saying, which is, you know, you make the vaccine. I don't know if you guys remember like H5N1, you know, like 12 years ago or something. Like we basically made a vaccine, and by the time we made the vaccine, the pandemic was basically over. We had already cleared it from the population. Like that's how long it took to make the vaccine. I just fear that that's exactly what's going to happen here, which is like, we're going to have this, you know, we're crested this peak and now we're coming down, and then we're going to be like, we have the vaccine. It's like, who cares? It's not even here anymore. Why are we excited about this? But I guess we'll see. And then next year it'll probably be different. So then we'll have to you're always playing catch up, right?
Have you been able to sleep with two little twins running around?
Yeah, luckily they're good sleepers. So that's
nice.
Yeah, now they are. Before the first year was pretty rough. I don't know if you guys have kids, but
I have kids. Yeah.
Yeah. The first year was pretty tough. But,
Doctor, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. You helped us out tremendously. So thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Have a good rest of your day.
All right. You too.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
See you guys.
Shit, man, that guy was awesome.
He was. It's the coolest college professor ever.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he was right down the middle. You didn't hear anything politically charged. He wasn't emotional one way or the other. So, you know, I think you know, he had his vantage point. You know, he had his own thoughts towards certain things, but he was just giving it to you straight after all these years of you know, being in the lab and all his expertise and education and everything. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I really like what he said there at the end with the vaccinations. You know, just things that I wasn't even considering. Like if I get the vaccine, then I can go hang out with my parents, that sort of thing. Whereas before, I'm like, I don't want to compromise whatever I got going on by injecting myself with something. But it's a new perspective that I didn't have. Now, has that changed my mind? No. But it's an awesome thing to think about now.
I really wish we asked him, like, maybe you guys can answer this for me, how exactly it works. Because like a vaccine, does it stop you from being able to get infected? Or if you get infected, do you just like immediately fight it off? Because I'm like, yeah.
Vaccine, from my understanding, and this is probably not good, but my understanding is it's as if you already had it.
Okay.
You know, and sometimes in some cases, but I don't believe this is the case with this one in particular, but normally they give you like a dosage of the actual illness itself so that you make the antibodies. But I think, I'm not 100% sure. I shouldn't even bother mentioning, but anyway, my understanding is it's almost as if you were sick.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I got my 12-year degree in how the flu vaccine works, so don't question it. But yeah, as far as I understand, you get like a dead version of the virus, so that way your body recognizes it and can develop the antibodies by like, you know, like by looking at that replica. So that way when it does come around again, they're like, hey, we already messed you up once, we're going to do it again. Which is why when people do get it, they still could get the flu virus because it's a new version of the virus. So like,
and sometimes people even feel sick sometimes after they get the shot.
That's why I stopped.
Could be psychological, but it could also be physiological. You know, it could be because you got a little dosage of the actual thing itself.
Purely anecdotal, and it happened to me and it sucked, and this isn't like a reason, this isn't why I didn't take vaccines. I didn't like needles, but the worst flu of my life was when I got my first flu vaccine.
Yeah.
It was the absolute worst. I was throwing up for days.
Yeah, that's happened to me every time. Not throwing up that bad or anything, but from what I understand, and I was totally joking about that degree, is that you already had that virus in you. It's just when you got the injection, it just kind of like woke it up or something like that. So it just seems to be always coincidental. Every time you get the flu shot, you get sick. It's because you already had it.
That could very well be it.
However, since then you haven't probably gotten sick from a flu, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the kicker.
Yeah, he had some great information in there. I like the stuff about the stem cells and them making that fish meat sounds sounds amazing. We're gonna have to like go try some of that out. That sounds so interesting.
Yeah,
dude, I would eat that.
I wonder, like, does it still smell like fish? Does it, it sounds to me like it's fake so that it doesn't, I mean, we didn't really ask about the freshness or anything, but it sounds like it doesn't need to be, it probably just needs to be cold because it's probably alive. Probably like, well, it's probably as alive as your meat is that's in your fridge. But, yeah, weird. Interesting.
Yeah, I would imagine they could probably make it smell like whatever. Like, they're making it, so maybe they can like remove
Make
some
it smell
of that.
like nachos.
Nachos.
This would be the cool thing. If they're making it from like real, like, yeah, he said they're taking the whatever from real fish and they're growing it, right? But if they're able to like do that at large scale, do you guys know how cheap sashimi could be if it was like genetically grown sashimi?
Also too, I mean, you have grass-fed beef, right? And then the people are thinking the benefit of grass-fed beef is the ratio, right? Well, if we're going to make fake stuff, we can really, amplify it and make it really nutritionally sound. So you can make a steak have all of the components that liver would have. You could make a hamburger have that. You can make bacon have that. And I think that's why, people are diving into some of these things. As always, there's always like a price to pay. There's always something's got to give, and when anything's too good to be true, there's always some sort of consequence to it. But it's just a really interesting field, thing to get into. What I found really interesting that he said, and this was done at Westside Barbell by a lot of people, and he was just talking about the needle. Like just like doing your own surgery, which is really really an interesting thing. But Louis used to always tell me, he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I just inject with saline solution. And I was like, saline solution? I was like, that's just basically like salt water. And I was like, why do you inject salt water? And he's like, I'm not just going to stab myself with a needle. I'm not crazy. So he basically saying the saline solution doesn't do anything, but he's like, I'm not crazy, Smelly. He's like, I'm not gonna just randomly hit myself up with a needle for no reason, not inject something.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So he's been doing shams. Yeah, when I heard about that sham surgery thing, I was like, whoa, like just stick a needle in there, cause an inflammation, and potentially heal yourself. That's cool. I wouldn't trust myself though. But that's a really awesome idea.
Yeah, what if you hit the wrong I mean, like, let's say your knee bugs you and you hit the wrong spot in your knee. Like, what if you're fraying that, what if you're fraying that little piece that you need? Like, what if you're stabbing but I guess the hole would be so small that it probably wouldn't matter. I don't know.
I would find a way to mess it up for sure.
Yeah, we need a doctor or something.
We need a doctor. Yeah, we need a doctor to make like a YouTube channel and just have tutorials on sham surgeries. Just have him show you where you need to inject this needle to get the inflammation, so you can do it yourself at home. Such a great idea.
Yeah, the great thing is he wouldn't actually need to be like a real doctor because these are fake surgeries.
These are fake surgeries.
Yeah, but there's also there's been studies where they take like people with knee problems. And like half of them, they do the surgery. The other half, they don't. And the ones that they don't, they tell them that they did, and they actually recover faster than the ones that got it. So this is just
a lot of that was meniscus stuff too, meniscectomies.
Wow.
I think that's what one of the tests you're talking about happened. Like half the group actually got a meniscectomy and half the group didn't. And a majority of the group that didn't just totally recovered. So you're right. Sometimes you don't need a real surgery.
And a meniscectomy, that's when it prevents you from having kids, right?
Mm-hmm. You guys getting a workout yet today?
Yeah, I hit up shoulders this morning. I did something I've never tried before. Like I was sitting down and I did a shoulder raise with a plate. Well, a 25-pound plate, and then did twists with it, and then down. My shoulder.
Twist and shout.
Yeah, I was shouting. It was bad.
Did you shake your butt a little bit too?
I would have if I wasn't sitting down. So, yeah, I was.
You got to try to shake the booty in there a little bit once you turn.
That thing was it was killer. But yeah, so I did that, And then I'll probably do a hike on the treadmill or something later.
Yeah. I haven't gotten a workout in yet. I will after this. I got in a 10-minute, no, probably it was like a 20-something minute squat on Instagram this morning. It was like 25 minutes. That felt good. But yeah, I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
Yesterday on Sunday, I only got in one workout, and I want to be truthful to everybody. Today I'm gonna get my 2 in.
You're off the team.
Sorry.
Does he have to do 3, Andrew? Does he have to do 3 today?
You could do a makeup, and then you'll feel better about everything.
Shit. Yeah. I could try. Yeah. I'm gonna try and get into makeup. I'll do something now, then I'll jump rope later, and then I'll do another kettlebell workout at night.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing 100 squats and 100 push-ups every day, and that's been feeling really good. And today I did it with the weight vest on, and that was just horrible. I can't even believe doing 20 squats is hard. Like, it's just stupid. Like, the vest is 40 pounds, and I'm usually holding like a 10 or a 20. It shouldn't be hard, but once I get into like the third round of that, I'm totally dying. My legs are on fire. And then I was trying to hit up you guys for it, but I didn't hit you guys up early enough. I was able to do it with Jessica. I hit her up, and she did her 100 reps with her slingshot on, and we went back and forth doing squats and push-ups. It was good.
Shoot. Okay, let's do that tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Let's do that tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, I definitely was dogging it this weekend. Friday, I've been doing these, they're like walk, run, hikes. So it's like uphill walking and then not as steep, like running. It's been awesome. So like the whole week I was climbing up this mountain, and then Friday it was like, all right, we're going all the way back down. I'm like, oh shit. So it was a whole like downhill sprint basically. It fucked my knees up. So it was bad. Like, we were just talking to Ross Edgley about like, oh, you got to run on your toes and, do that. And like, I wasn't expecting to run at all. And then all of a sudden here I am going downhill. I'm like, how the fuck are you supposed to run on your toes downhill? So this weekend, my knee was killing me. My cankles were all sore. It was bad.
You were running downhill on the treadmill?
Yeah. It goes to like a -6 decline. So it was pretty, yeah.
I would just say, don't ever run downhill.
Yeah, I know that now.
It's and the same thing with like, I know some people have been seeing me with like the weight vest and stuff, and it's good to go out there and it's good to be a tough guy and it's good to work hard. But I've been doing this, I'm learning, and running where there's a step higher than where your foot is each time works great. So like a hill is fantastic. Stairs are great, but if you have a weight vest on and you're trying to just do a regular run, as Ross was pointing out, you're 4 or 5 times the amount of pressure on each side. And you might be like, screw that, I can handle it. And you might be able to handle it, but you probably, most likely are only going to be able to handle it for a little bit. And we don't want to see that happen. And for me, with my knee, it's like it's just been my right knee is flared up. I've had this since I was a teenager, basically. I have a little bit of like jumper's knee. It will get inflamed a little bit with some tendonitis. And then usually it just, miraculously goes away at some point. But anyway, yeah, running downhill is tough. And I would advise, especially if you're newer to running, what I was doing on Instagram the other day makes you look like a maniac, makes you look like a weirdo, but I would advise going down like sideways if you're going to try to still run. Mm-hmm. So you almost do like a basketball slide, or you can, your front foot could be pointed straight and your other foot and your body could be kind of this way. And each time, just watch the video, each time lean to the side of the hill. And it makes it a lot less stressful. But yeah, just trying to figure out how to make these workouts. It's funny. I texted Jessica this morning. I said, I've never worked out so much in my life. I'm just like working out nonstop. I'm like working out and eating, working out and eating, working out and eating. I feel like an athlete over here.
Seriously, it's not funny though. Like you're not using the gym, but you're working out more. I don't know. I think it's a funny irony here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've been, so like watching you and stuff, I've been doing a lot of like the kettlebell stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was just joking on my Instagram. I'm like, I never thought I would dislike the numbers 21, 15, 9 so much, because I was like, like I'll just do like some snatches each side, 21, 15, 9. How bad can it be? And I'm like, that was bad. That was real bad. So it's been, it's been fun getting creative. And then also, I mentioned this before, like the anxiety. Not that it's bad. It's fun. We all love going to the gym, but like for me personally, like, I have to get everything ready. I don't want to forget something, because once I go to the gym, I'm going to stay there and work. So it's like, I got to get everything going. Now it's like I wake up and whatever shirt I'm wearing, I'll just train in that and then take a shower after. It's been pretty nice.
There's no barrier stopping it.
Correct.
Yeah. I think this is the way that people should always treat their fitness, like just, treat it like a 10-minute walk, treat it as if it's just going to be something simple and something that you can repeat. It doesn't always have to be this workout where you're dripping with sweat from head to toe, although those workouts are great and those are probably going to be the most beneficial. But even just hitting a couple squats and a couple push-ups throughout the day, just doing 10 and 10 and just do it a bunch of different times. Somebody told me the other day that they, for every hour they were awake, they did 20 squats and 20 push-ups. And I was just like, shit, man, that's probably a lot of work at the end of the day. You might do 200 of each. And it's just like you're chipping away, right? Mm-hmm. And Jordan Syatt has been doing 300 push-ups a day. Somebody told him that it's impossible to do 100 push-ups in 100 seconds. And so he's all fired up. So he's trying to get after that. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously not impossible. There's people can do all kinds of freaky things, but that would be a difficult one to try to figure out.
Yeah. Chef Rush could probably do it in half that.
He could. No, Chef Rush could do it for sure. 100 and 100. But yeah, no, this quarantine's been giving us a lot of opportunity to do new things. Like I've been doing more push-up work now too. And the clavicle issue that I've been having here has been getting better as I've been doing more push-ups. So they're small things that are just getting better. There's a bunch of things that we can improve on. That's what people need to remember. We don't need a barbell to still get improvement in terms of our fitness.
What you guys thinking of that Jordan documentary? You both watching it?
Amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, what I love most about it is it's going to show people exactly why Jordan was the best. That was my first takeaway for sure. But I also had no idea that Pippen was paid so little. That is crazy.
Yeah, that made me feel so like bad for him, because he was such a good player. Like that's fucked up.
Yeah, it was. I found it all to be very interesting too, because like he's with the most iconic, person of all time. He's with the guy who's made the most money. Like Jordan can't be like, hey, can you hook Scotty up with a Nike deal or whatever? I don't know. I don't know what their relationship was like when it comes to that sort of thing or whatever. But yeah, it's all really interesting. And then I was also shocked to hear the way that Pippen started to act, but he must have just been super frustrated with how he was treated. Mm. And he must have been like when he just kind of continually made fun of
Krause.
Krause. Like, and that's just like, I don't know. That's really ugly. It's like, you'd be better off just saying, hey man, like I fucking hate the way I'm being treated. This is bullshit. I was like, wow, that's so, but what I was thinking when I heard that side of it, I was like, oh, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe he was a little bit hard to work with. So maybe that's why they weren't paying him, what he deserved or whatever. Like there was probably a reason for it. Mm. It sounded like the main reason was that the contract that they gave him just was not good. And he kind of signed it anyway and was kind of stuck in that. I mean, that's what I think it was his attorney that was talking about it. He was like, I told him not to ever sign that contract, but
it wasn't his attorney. It was like, it was the general manager, I think. Yeah. That guy, like he was either owner or general manager. That was like, I told him not to sign it,
Right.
But Pippen, like, yeah. But what I think one thing that I'm not surprised about was Michael's digging at that Krauser guy, because you've heard of like some of the things that apparently Michael has said to his teammates. Like you've heard reports of that. He would like just absolutely make them feel like shit. So that wasn't too surprising.
Yeah, you tear into him. I was also shocked too to hear Jordan like cussing so much, and then also I think he's got like booze next to him too. It looks like he has like a little thing of liquor next to him. Yeah. So all that was a little odd to me, because I'm like, a lot of people watching this are gonna. Not that I care. I think it's cool that he let it fly, and and it just shows that his still emotional attachment to everything, right? But I found it to be interesting, because I'm like, man, there's a lot of young kids that are probably going to watch this that never seen him do his thing. They don't know. And now they're going to be kind of seeing that. For me, I was a little disappointed, because I'm like, they're going to see kind of some of the wrong shit about him almost, but I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck, right?
No, we can just tell everybody that it was iced tea, same color.
Definitely tequila. Definitely his tequila.
Yeah, it was, for sure.
But I will say this. One thing that got me super fired up was seeing how, like, you heard his high school basketball stories where, like, he didn't even make the varsity team as a freshman or sophomore. And then you heard how someone from his college basketball team, or it was a coach or something, saying, yeah, when he came in here, he wasn't the best on the team. There were guys that were like, yeah, I was beating him one-on-one back then. But like, that's the thing. Like, you hear about his work ethic. Like, he wasn't the best just stepping on, but that work ethic, that insane work ethic, and always trying to improve, always trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong here? What am I doing there? That turned him into the best basketball player we've ever seen. It's not like he was always the best basketball player ever, which is what a lot of people think.
Right. And he did get really good early on. He did get, he when he was at North Carolina, like, he was one of the better players. But I think it was Roy Williams, who's a legendary basketball coach. He was a coach at North Carolina. He's like, yeah, we thought, we would invite him out and see what he does. And we were thinking, he's a great player, like, no question. But then he's like, by the time he left, which was, I think, just a few weeks later, by the time he left, we knew he was the best basketball player we'd ever seen. And that's amazing. And then also I found it interesting too, because I forget that, I was super young when some of the stuff was going on, but like, when he gets hurt and he reaches down and grabs his ankle, he's wearing like the Jordans, like he's wearing the Jordans. And I was like, I kind of forgot that he was like Air Jordan, like, so early on, like out of the gate, he was already like a badass. And they talked about how much confidence he had when he played against the Celtics. And I remember that era, and I remember things being like that. Like, when someone popped on the scene, it was like, just, I don't know, the companies invested everything they could in them, and the fans invested everything. But now it's like, there's so many people with millions of followers. It's diluted, right? So you don't know, is this guy really, all that? Is this guy really something? You kind of don't. They say it about everybody, so you don't know. Like, UFC is really guilty of that. You're like, this is the best guy to ever step into the octagon, and they go crazy, and you're like, he's won 3 championship fights. You're like, get the fuck out of here. It's not the best guy, but they're trying to really hype it up,
Yeah. I can't believe that Chicago, like, the Bulls were that terrible before Jordan got there. That's, again, so like, he made it to the league a year before I was born. So obviously I didn't experience any of the stuff before, but I was like, no way. Like, in my whole lifetime, like, the Bulls emblem is like, it means so freaking much. Like, that to me is like greatness, right? Like, you see it, you know it, you recognize it. So to think that at one point, like, that was garbage, like, that is mind blowing.
But also that story of him, like, when he was talking about, like, when he went to the hotel room and he was seeing lines of Coke, alcohol, women. And he was just like, peace. Just going and cooking his food. And that was the funniest thing.
That was so good. Yeah. I mean, young Jordan, I think, can teach us, like, so many things, like, maybe even more than older Jordan. But, like, that, like, everything in college, too, when he's like, I want to be the best player, like, that's ever played. And then he's like, his coach, who he said it was Roy Williams, Mark. Okay. man, that I can't wait to rewatch all that, because he's just like, oh, like, yeah, you're gonna have to work, way harder than everybody else then. And he's like, but in high school, I just did what everyone else did. And he's like, oh, my mistake. I thought you said you wanted to be the best ever. Never mind. And so, like, he's like, well, I'm gonna show you. It's like, oh shit, here we go. Like, so, and then his coach saying like, oh, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't come back another year. You need to go pro. Like, that would never happen these days. Obviously players they're one and done now, but man, like, what an amazing coach.
Yeah, Jordan he had it all when it came to being able to score. He just had so many different facets of his game. Sometimes some of the bigger guys, some of the bigger basketball players, like a Karl Malone or even like a Larry Bird, who's like 6'9". They have a lot of really good footwork. They can dribble well, and they can create enough space between them and the opponent to where they can get a really good shot off. Or like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the ultimate example of that with his hook shot. Like, he just needed just a little bit of room, and he could toss the ball in the basket every single time. But Jordan, he wasn't, he was 6'5", 6'6", and he had to kind of create space with his body, with his speed, but he could also drive the lane and dunk all over people. He was extremely explosive. But the way that he would arrive at shots was different than most people. The way he was able to like step away from somebody or create space with a little nudge of like his forearm, it was like masterful. It was like unbelievable to watch. And I think when you later saw Kobe Bryant playing, that's where you saw like, Kobe just mimicked so many of those things, and he was able to kind of find some of his own rhythm and some of his own shots, his own way. But man, Jordan was just so good at that. It's a weird skill set to think about. It's like, oh, well, I got to be good at shooting, but man, there's so much more to it, because you have to get away from the other guy. You have to be able, and Jordan could jump like crazy. So, he could hit, he can jump high enough to be like over you. But even with that, he still has to get enough space away from you to be able to see the basket, the right way.
That was one of the more surprising things that I saw. Like, there was a picture of him in college jumping for a jump shot, right? And you see a lot of guys in the NBA like take jump shots, but the amount of air that they have underneath them when they do, like when they hop up for that, it's not comparable. Like, it's like he'd spring up and he's already above you for that jump shot. It's crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny how it had like all the centers in the league were like, there's no way that a smaller player could, be dominant in this league, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh man. And then of course, kind of on the same lines about people being wrong about it, like, man, Sam Bowie being a second round pick over Jordan because they already had Drexler, which I understand, and I don't necessarily blame them for it, but man, that's gotta hurt Portland so bad to pass on him.
It's Jordan, was so like quick and explosive. You really haven't seen another player. I guess Kobe would be the only thing. Like, LeBron is a different player. LeBron's probably faster than Jordan was. LeBron is like just a complete mutant athlete, but I would say that Jordan was quicker. He was kind of a quicker first step, a quicker burst. But it's cool for me to have watched so many of his games, and like I've told you guys before, I got an opportunity to see him in a playoff game and live in person and stuff like that. And he's just a amazing athlete. But what I saw in the documentary was like all the off the court stuff being like just as important as the actual game itself. How you play the game of life is probably the most important thing, because there's probably other guys that have been through the league who have the same skill set as Jordan, as crazy as that might sound, the same genetics or same, they have a lot of the qualities that he had.
Look at Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. Then they're not able to control themselves maybe off the court as much, or even not like they're out of control off the court, but maybe just, they don't know how to deflect just all that. It's gotta be impossible. I don't know how anybody would be able to do it.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like, there are a lot of guys in the NBA that like have the hops or have the quickness, but they just can't put it together like he did. But one thing I really can't wait for is I'm excited for them to like get into the gambling stuff, because you hear a lot about it, how like he'd be at a casinos like the night before a game or something, or he wouldn't get much sleep or something. He'd come and he'd kill it. Like, I wonder if they're going to have any of that on camera, or if not, we'll see.
He was always so far ahead of everybody that all he was always thinking about is like how to play games with people. So like some of the stuff I've heard is that like he would, let's say he was traveling with us and he would say, "Hey, Nsima, like, I bet you that my bag comes out first." And you'd be like, "What? How do you, like, why would your bag come out first?" And it'd be like, "Hey, what, you want to bet?" And, you bet like $100 or something. And then he would tip somebody like $20 or $40 to get his bag out, to make sure his bag comes out first, but he would do it without you knowing it. And so he played these like mind games on people, and then his bag would come out first, and he'd be like, "How the fuck did his bag come out first out of all these different bags that we got?" And he would make $60 off the deal. But I mean, only a person that's ahead of everybody else could even entertain like thinking like that. Because otherwise you're thinking about, oh, we're playing against the Utah Jazz tonight, and I got these assignments, and I got to remember these plays. Like, everyone else is all anxious and thinking about, where they're gonna party after the game, and like all these, they're thinking of 9,000 different things. But he's always 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
I can't believe Krause going into the 97 season being like
fat little hobbit.
Yeah, that, and being like, this is the greatest basketball team ever assembled. After this year, we're done. Like, what are you, like, just unbelievable. Like, I was just blown away that they, already had predetermined that was going to be the case.
I'm excited to see some of the stuff with the Pistons coming up, because the Pistons beat the shit out of him.
It was so good. I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Nsima?
I've heard about it. Yeah, how they had it was like, they're the ones with the Jordan defense, right? How they just literally just like fly on him and just like,
they had the actual, they were called the Jordan rules.
Jordan rules. There it is. That's what it was.
And I don't know like if they'll actually show like all the, they literally had a list of rules for him, but I mean the main rules just kind of beat the hell out of him. The main thing they taught too was just like, don't let him fly, don't let him get through the air. So they would just, anytime he would jump, they'd just try to fuck him up.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think he was a power forward, might have even been a center, but oh my gosh.
Bill
Lambier would just be like, they're not going to call a foul every single time. So they would just fuck him up and just like physically, like just like not even fouling him, like just fucking throwing him around and being like, they can't call a foul every single time. And oh my gosh, dude, so bad.
Bill Lambier he's got a great story. There's a story on the Detroit Pistons and that era of basketball, and he's like, everyone hates him. Everyone always hated Bill Lambier because he always started fights. He was a dirty player. He was obviously a very good player, but he wasn't as talented as a lot of other guys. So he had to use like a lot of grit. But he would just annoy people. He'd get into fights all the time. And then another reason for people to hate him is that he grew up really wealthy. Here he is playing with all these other guys that, maybe grew up not as fortunate as he did. And anyway, long story short is Isaiah Thomas, he works his way through the ranks of the NBA and becomes one of the better players in the league. And he buys a house, and he buys a house on the same street that like Bill Lambier grew up on. And Bill Lambier's like, he's like, "Oh, I heard you moved next to my parents," or something like that. And then Isaiah Thomas was like, "What?" He's like, "You grew up in that neighborhood?" He's like, "You fucking asshole." It's like, holy shit.
Cute. You got a house next to my parents. That's hella funny. But it's crazy. Even so, like NBA players then, they made money, but it's crazy to like see how much more money NBA players make now. Like Scottie Pippen's 6-year, $18 million deal. And we got NBA players that are doing like 3 for like 90 and stuff like that. 3 years for like 90 million. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. Pippen signing a 7-year deal. That's unheard of. I don't care who you are, how much money they're going to pay you. Nobody takes a 5-year deal is like, holy shit, this guy's here for life. But the guy took 7. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then it was a different time, but I hadn't thought about that, about like somebody being like, man, you should go do some McDonald's commercials to make up for the money right now. And then once you become a free agent, we'll figure it out. But like, yeah, today's players will figure it out. Like, players come out of college with like their own logos and name brands of like apparel and stuff.
Right.
So that way they can make up for some of the costs or whatever it may be. And I just think it was just a combination of things, like bad timing for Pippen, and then also, I mean, shit, dude, you're playing alongside the best player ever. So yeah, it's tough.
You know what's funny? You guys know who LaMelo Ball is?
Yeah.
You heard of him?
Yeah.
You remember LeVar Ball, Lonzo Ball, like the...
Oh, yeah.
Okay. LaMelo Ball is the youngest brother, who's like 6'7" now. He's probably going to be one of the top draft picks next year. But he was playing in Australia, and apparently him and his manager, Jermaine Jackson, purchased an Australian national basketball team.
Wow.
Yeah, so like this is the thing. Like he hasn't even hit the NBA yet, but like there are these college like NBA players that have a lot of followers, that have like some people that are helping them with business, that are making big old moves before they get into the NBA. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is wild.
Yeah.
Another thing I liked about the film was seeing the way that Jordan handled his coach not allowing him to get back in the game when it was like 30 seconds left and they lost. I love that he didn't do anything at the moment. You know, he didn't like lose his cool or whatever. He was just chilling on the bench. And then when they got in the locker room, he like closed the door and like, you know, I think they had like a meeting about it. They didn't really say a ton about what he said, but I like the fact that he kind of kept to himself for a minute, and then he expressed to his team, like, this is bullshit. Like, we got to still figure out ways to win. You know, you never play to lose and that kind of stuff. And I thought that was, I think there's a lot of great characteristics. And I think, Andrew, you hit the nail on the head saying that there's a lot of good things to learn. You know, I hope a lot of people watch it. I think that was the second episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope a lot of people watch it and check it out, because there's so much to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one that, like, am I mistaken? Was that the game that, like, he was taken out, that white guy ended up making the last shot, so they won, right? But Krause was pissed because, like, now they're in the playoffs and they were trying to tank so they could get better
draft position.
Draft position. But still, yeah. That's...
Dude, did you see that move that Jordan put? I mean, he put a lot of moves on Bird because he scored like 63 points.
The most iconic through the legs.
Yeah, where he goes boom, 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 boom through the, like, what the, like, how, like, just can't even halfway mimic anything that resembles that, and even try to bother even trying to make a shot. You know what I mean? Like, and then meanwhile you have one of the all-time greats guarding you. I realize Larry Bird is not really nearly as quick as Jordan is, but he still is a Hall of Famer, you know, and it's just ridiculous. I thought it was also really cool, and this is probably my favorite part, is that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, they knew. Like, I thought that was cool. I thought they were like, hey, like, here's the savior of the entire league. Yeah. Like, let's just watch this thing grow, and let's be like cool with it rather than like being a dick, because they were like, no, he's the best player, period. They're like, there's no reason for him to pile up a bunch of championships. Like, we don't need to wait 10 years. He's the best goddamn player in the league by far. I thought that was amazing, because those guys are some of the best players of all time.
Larry Bird called him God. I think that was the funniest thing. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, and these are old school players, right? Like, these are hardcore, like, they're not going to give up any ground. They're not going to let you get any leverage on them. And then, yeah, here's Magic and Bird, both multi-championship winners, MVPs, the absolute cream of the crop, being like, this little guy's going to kick our ass.
And it's crazy because he was still like, what, year 2 or year 3? He wasn't a rookie that season they were talking about it, but it was like year 2 or year 3 that they were saying this about him. Like, he was insane.
I can't wait till they get into more of like Jordan in practice, because they showed a little bit of it of him yelling and stuff, but like I heard of the story about him like straight up punching Steve Kerr like in practice. So it's like, man, I want to hear Steve Kerr talk about it. Hopefully he does.
But that, that kind of stuff's great too, because it shows you that, like, like Steve Kerr must have been reactive enough to have a fight, and that shows you that both guys care so much about what they're doing. Maybe like a fight isn't the best way to resolve it, but maybe they can't communicate to figure out a way to resolve the conflict. But I always thought that, like, we had fights in football practice and stuff all the time. My coach always talked about how he was like, hey, I don't want you guys acting irrational and hurting each other, but you guys care. We give a shit. We want to win, and it's because somebody, continues to jump off sides, or somebody continues to hold or not run the play the right way. And you're also tired too. That's another thing with practice, is you're tired, and the practice of trying to make something perfect is excruciating, and it is like super frustrating. You're trying to be better than you were yesterday, and when it's not working out, it makes you so mad. I think jiu-jitsu is a great example of that, because in the beginning, your mind is like in a knot. You're like, I remember how to get out of this last time, but I can't figure it out this time. And boom, there you get tapped out. And even worse, when you're trying to figure out an offensive move, you're like, I have the guy's arm, but I can't do anything with it because you can't remember what you did. And it just can be really, really frustrating.
Yeah, that's the whole journey, and it happens all the way through all belts. Although it gets a little bit easier to deal with, but yeah, you're exactly right. Man. Dennis Rodman, when we get to see more of him, that's going to be fun, because we haven't gotten to Dennis Rodman yet, so that's going to be good.
I think that's the next episode, right?
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, sick.
Yeah, it is weird how they keep jumping back and forth, but man, I love all of it though. It's perfect.
You guys hear about what Snoop Dogg said today? Today?
Oh,
he said leave out some milk and cookies for him.
Oh, it's 420.
It's 420. I'm assuming that means he's going to be like Santa Claus and drop off a lot of weed to everybody. I don't know.
Got it.
Or maybe he's just hungry. I'm not sure.
Maybe it's the munchies, or he's going to be gifting people weed. Oh God.
Terrible.
I know you guys are going to go get high as fuck right now, right?
I'm good.
I'm okay. Not me.
Andrew, that didn't sound legit, actually.
No,
right there, you're like, not me.
Because I'm already paranoid because I'm high as fuck already.
I feel it, bro.
No.
All right, guys. Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Thank you, everybody, for checking out this episode. I can't wait to talk more about the Last Dance in future episodes. Shout out to Perfect Keto for sponsoring this episode. If you guys can, please follow up and check out the links in the YouTube description and iTunes show notes. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, if people want to get in touch with you, where are you at?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, at Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. All links are on Instagram. Mark?
Oh, hey, peeps, look at this. This is Hapthor Bjornsson. I don't know if you can see that there.
Mm-hmm.
You see what he says? He said, want to have a chat tomorrow?
This is going to be good.
When's tomorrow?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. When is tomorrow?
Icelandic time zone.
Yeah, soon. Yeah, I'll hit him up and see what we can get going. And in Nsima, I let him know that you thought you could tap him out very, very easily. So you'll have to answer some questions about that tomorrow.
I'd be down to roll with Thor. I think he would just like Hulk smash me. But
dude, have you ever seen him? Have you ever seen him box?
I saw him like him versus Conor McGregor or something.
Yeah, well, he did some boxing against like a professional boxer, and he did awesome. Like he did it was completely like unbelievable to me, and people were just shredding him apart. I mean, he got his ass kicked. He eventually got his ass kicked, but holy shit, man, he did amazing. I mean, he's going against another heavyweight. I mean, like if you don't know how to box, I mean, that would be like somebody going against you in jiu-jitsu and doing really well. It doesn't make any sense if you've never done any jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's done much boxing, but I was like, holy shit, man. I mean, he was throwing some bombs too. It was terrifying. It's on YouTube. You guys should check it out sometime. It was pretty cool. But yeah, hopefully we can get Hapthor Bjornsson on the show. That would be really cool. Try to keep up with your push-ups and your quarantine doubles.
Yeah.
You know, we're keeping fresh with them. And Nsima missed a day, but he's going to make it up to you guys. So don't worry about it. And the 100 push-ups, 100 squats. I mean, you know, do 10 back and forth until you get to 100, or whatever way you got to space it out. Maybe you suck at push-ups and you can only do 5 at a time. Just whatever way you can get yourself to 100, even if it's just doing 10 or 20 kind of throughout the day. I'm going to get on out of here and go hit up workout number 2. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch y'all later. Bye.